Welcome back to another Hacker Hangouts on another Saturday morning. And we're talking about health, which is kind of weird because actually it's not that weird because we are all the pinnacle of health. Clearly, like Olympic gold athlete, and then somewhere there. Am I right? Gowrie, you might. I mean, on a normal day.
On a normal day, I think every Olympic athlete could just whoop my ass with without even trying, like with one pinky. Right.
Like, I could probably, I mean, I do get winded going up the stairs as I go up and down to my office. But I think, I think so many of us have been working remote for I've been working remote for over 15 years. How long have you been working remote? Or have you been were you social distancing before it was cool? Or have you been working out of your home office for a while?
I was set up to go fully remote pretty early, just because I was working from home 1 to 2 days a week already. And so I got out of the house a lot during that time, where I'd go out and take walks during the day, go eat at a cafe. And that was great for my mental health at the time. It actually got significantly worse when COVID happened, because all of a sudden I was just like room, office, back to my room to sleep, back into the office, back into room. And like, it didn't go out anymore because everything was closed. Right. So,
yeah. So what about you? What about you, Gator? And then I'll get back to it a little bit. Whoa, I'll fix your camera right now.
I am super tiny. So when I started doing remote work, it was about 4 or 5 years ago at this point.
Okay.
And
it was about 5 years ago.
I'll fix your camera. There we go.
Hey, cool. All right. So yeah, about 5 years ago, I went through and started working remote, and that was 2 jobs ago. So this was not a new thing for me. And during that time frame, I started setting myself up with some gear that I think we'll probably go into a little bit later on. But much like Gowrie is like being able to go take walks, be able to go out and do things. I went to a local Starbucks 1 or 2 times a week and just worked out of Starbucks because, hey, I got to see some people. I got to do my work. Having dual monitors set up.
Yeah, so you worked remote. You worked remote You worked remote a little bit before COVID and things like that, but more specifically now. What about you, Gulo? Have you been doing it for a while?
I've been remote for about 3 years now. So I started remote just before COVID hit. It was sometime in 2019. I moved, 1,000 miles away from my actual job and just started working remote. And I've been remote since even before COVID. I mean, I might go for a walk, but there's the sun and people and shit outside.
I think it is kind of funny because we're like, I've been social distancing since high school. They said, sit over there by yourself. And I said, yes, success. But it is kind of funny because we've been doing this remote thing. And I feel like for me, I don't have a healthy relationship with both work and food and things like that. And I have weird stories, but I think I want to talk about like some of the things that I found that have been working for me, and I really wanted to actually know what you guys have been doing. So which ones I can shamelessly steal for myself. Actually, the start of this conversation, the whole idea of this discussion was after stream last week. Me and Gowrie kind of realized that we both had the same like a Herman Miller like Aeron chair, which we both kind of felt guilty about having because it was the one I had at GE, and it's not a cheap chair. Like I think brand new, they're like $1,800. I got mine on eBay for like I think it was like $450 brand new. And it's one of those things of like, it is like the most underrated piece of gear you absolutely need. And where people like, I remember thinking like $500 for a chair is expensive, but this is after I had gone through like 4 different Costco chairs, and you keep replacing them and they break down, where this one, like, it stands up. Like, have you noticed that when you've been like your chair where it's like, I need a good chair?
Well, let's acknowledge the raid we just got. 42
Holy
people.
crow.
Hey, security raid. Thanks, guys. Welcome to the stream. We're talking about how to stay healthy as a hacker this week. Do you want to give the spiel real quick again?
Yeah, absolutely. So like what we're doing is we're talking about health and hacking, and that we're all like clearly pinnacles of health, and that's not true at all. We're all actually complete failures at health, and things that we want to do a little bit better, but things that have been working well for us and hopefully might work for you as well. So I'd love to hear like what tips you have for being healthy as a hacker, whether it's like eating, mental health, or more specifically what we're talking about right now is what gear we use to give us a little bit more joy. And mine is this chair, which is, there's so many things in my office I have no justifiable reason to own, like this mic. There's no justifiable reason, but it brings me joy, and that's a beautiful thing. But chair wise, is this one of those like things where it's like you do need a very good chair, or do you disagree, yes. Gowrie?
No, I agree. I actually have back problems from the time I was in the Navy, and I have gone through many, many, many office chairs in my 15 years of working in various hacker settings, if you will. And finally, where I work now, they have Aaron Miller's, or what is it, the Herman Miller Aarons in the office. And I finally realized, like, wow, the difference between my home office chair and my work office chair. If I was working from home, I would end up with back pain at the end of the day. And if I was working from the office, I wouldn't. And so, like you, I bought refurbished. Don't go out and buy new Herman. If you're thinking about getting a Herman Miller chair, do not go buy new. Buy refurbished. They're just as good. Resellers are great, and you're going to pay like a third of the price. And yeah, I honestly think the chair, out of anything else you can buy, sit to stand desk, like irrelevant. Like I use an IKEA desk, right? But your chair is like one of your most important pieces of equipment after your computer, right? Like, because if you don't have a computer, you have no reason to sit in the chair.
I mean, I know a Gator, you use a standing desk, don't you?
I do. And previous employers that I had, I was able to go through and get one of the nicer uplift desks. But then when I went to work from home, I'll be honest with you, I did the hack and I went to my local Home Depot, got the, what is it? The Cobalt, or it's the same ones that you can get with the workbenches that you can hand crank up. And they cost $250. It's on wheels, so I can move it, and it's got the butcher block on top. So I'm sitting half the day and I'm standing half the day. And along with the sit-stand desk, you need to make sure you get yourself a good standing mat. Whether you're going to put your shoes on or not, you definitely need a standing mat.
I did. So, oh goodness, this is kind of funny. Sorry. So my last employer would buy me a bunch of office equipment, and it did feel at times like a use it or lose it. So he's like, I need you to spend this. So it was like, okay, I need nothing in my office. So I guess I'll buy like a treadmill desk. And in my mind, I was like, this is a way I'm going to be healthy, because you like walk while you're working. And it wasn't actually that distracting, but all of a sudden I realized like you're trying to code or think, like in so much of our job is like sitting there staring at a wall thinking. Like I think Gowrie had a rant on this, but you're just sitting there thinking, and it's really hard to think. And like you want to get away from your computer sometimes to think, where you go outside and go for a walk. And I found myself, I'm just walking in front of my computer. In no way at all is this healthy whatsoever. Sure, I walk, but like mentally and physically I'd be fatigued. And then I would find myself like, I was horribly out of shape. Not that I'm like a pinnacle of fitness now, but I'd be in a conference call and I'm like, okay, so what we have to do for this engagement is, and they're like, what are you doing right now? And I'm like, I'm pooping. I'm definitely pooping. I think half the people just thought I was in the bathroom.
I like Rams Reef says, I try to bike and play games sometimes, but when it's hard when it gets hard, I stop pedaling. And I'm like, yeah, I can't imagine having a piece of exercise equipment integrated into my desk and then actually, sitting down to code kernel driver stuff. Like it just wouldn't happen.
I do it all the time.
I was gonna say,
so I have an uplift desk. I have sit standing. So I spend at least an hour. My goal is an hour a day standing, but I don't just stand on a mat. I have a balance board that I stand on. So I have a board that has a roller underneath. And if my dumbass leans one side too far or the other side too far, I tip over. And I code, I program, I do meetings on that thing. I don't care. If I make an ass of myself in a meeting because I fell over, then my bad.
It kind of goes back into that. Oh, go on, Gowrie.
I just said, leave it to the chaos monkey to integrate that into their meetings even.
I do find it kind of interesting as we're talking about meetings. Do you find that we had another thing that triggered this conversation was Gowrie had this whole he started developing wrist issues because his keyboard, he went to a split keyboard. Do you have two keyboards? Like I have like this big obnoxiously loud like WASD keyboard that I use, but there's no way I can use this while at work because, or like while I'm on a meeting because it's stupidly loud. So I have like the whole like Mac keyboard. Not really a health thing nearly as much, but I wanted to ask you, Gowrie, about your keyboard thing because it was so interesting to me that I was like, oh yeah, for anyone who's having wrist issues, this might actually help them.
Yeah, so I mean, the backstory on this is I developed wrist issues while I was in the Navy, and it was mostly from using standard keyboards, and it was really, really bad keyboards, like the ones you get from Dell that have no tactile response or anything like that. Just really, really crummy stuff. And the fact that when you use a standard keyboard, your hands are like basically fully together, and if you go to use a mouse, this motion, this motion is built into moving back and forth off of the mouse. And I started developing some, I think it's like Deckwer veins, tenosynovitis or whatever. And for, TLDR, like repetitive motion use injuries are a real thing. And it took my wife, who's a physical therapist, to be like, no, we're going to sit down and we're going to debug your body and we're going to figure out what issue is actually causing this. And we figured out it was that motion. And the simplest fix for me was to get a split keyboard. And I don't have it in front of me, so I can't tell you the brand, but literally I went from having almost like I needed a wrist brace and I couldn't use my wrist at the end of the day. I can't use keyboards to play video games. I have to use controllers because of the same issue. Like the keyboard and mouse combination is horrible for me. So everything I play, I even play Final Fantasy like 14 with a controller because of this. But when I moved to a split keyboard, and I didn't have this long travel distance to go from the keyboard to the mouse, it like resolved within 2 weeks. And so if you're experiencing those types of repetitive use injuries, don't ignore them, debug them, right? Like find a body debugger, find a physical therapist or an OT and get them to help you debug it. Your body is a machine like anything else.
It is kind of funny because I feel like when we've talked about this before, like I have this whole idea on mental health and things like that. It's like, we're like, what things do we look at back on, 15 years ago? Like my parents played with mercury as kids in their high school science lab. Like there would be like mercury and they'd like play with coins and things like that. And it's massively like, how can they be that stupid in things now where we just take for granted with our health? Where it's like, what are we doing now? Especially, I think, in the computer field where it's so new. Like, what stupid things are we doing now? Where like, we put these people in a lab for 16 hours a day at a computer, like bent over, and we expect them not to have long-term health issues. So, like, kind of piggybacking on the equipment routine, what other things have you done in your office that have helped out? Like, one of the things I've done, and I probably won't be able to show it right now, but I put my monitor on a big swivel thing on my desk. So if I'm standing or if I'm moving around or whatever I'm working on, I can just move it up and down. I think the other trick I've been doing too, especially when I've been looking at code all day, never underestimate the my father was using his computer and he's like squinting in this little tiny text. And I realized I'm like, am I the old man who like control pluses like everything to have big giant text, and the whole idea of like black on blue or everything like that? Like I feel like you need to do those tricks just so your eyes don't get like just completely ruined.
I can't actually move my monitors. So I have 7 monitors set up on my desk right now. And if I bump one of those monitors, I will actually get vertigo the next time I sit down. It takes me hours to adjust if one of my monitors moves, because I'm so used to the placement, whether I'm sitting or standing. As far as vision goes, I take breaks. I take breaks every hour for about 5 minutes. I'll walk away from my computer. I'll do push-ups, squats, sit-ups, whatever. I have a whole exercise regime that I do while I'm working. But part of that is to go stare out a window as well. I need to look into the distance so that I can adjust the focal muscles of my eyes. Since I'm looking at everything so close right now, I need to look away so that I'm actually exercising my distance vision as well, so that I don't go blind in another 3 years.
It's funny.
So 20, 20, 20, right?
Gator.
So 20 feet away, 20 seconds. Look up away, 20 feet away for 20 seconds. And there was one more 20 for, I'm not sure what reason. But yeah, 20, 20, 20 rule.
Division.
It's funny.
I do
because
none of these things.
Well, I've heard all of these things. I don't do any of these things. I've heard like, oh, if you have good vision, you want to every once in a while like look away. I've also heard this like every hour you should get up for 5 minutes, and then what will be like, it'll be like 5 hours have gone by. And like, here's the weird part. I have bought in all these little stupid things to remind me. Like I have like an Apple Watch, and every hour it's like you need to stand up for every 5 minutes. And I thought just by buying these things, I would actually start doing like, you have like the mindfulness, and it's like, you haven't been mindful in 2 hours. It's like, I have been, and it's like the Siri voice comes on, and it's like, listen, woman, I have been coding, and I don't know, like, I'm having a bickering argument with my watch, trying to get out of like it telling me to just stand for 2 minutes an hour. And I do find like we have all these great things, and I don't know if there's any way of like forcing yourself to do them outside of like taking an interest in your own health.
There is, and it's non-technological, right? Like you don't need to buy gadgets. You don't need to buy a thing to remind you that is, part of a computer. What you buy is a dog, and they will let you know that that you need to go outside pretty regularly. Especially if they're a puppy, which is what, like, honestly, I bought a puppy about, I don't know, it was 6 or 7 weeks ago, and we're actually at my parents' house right now. We're socializing him and taking him on drives and getting him used to everything. I have walked and run more in the last 6 weeks than I have in the past almost 8 years. Like, I've started keeping track of it. I started doing like 2 miles of walking per day. And I started doing the calculations. I'm like, I'm pretty sure with the exception of this trip here, I have walked more in the past 6 weeks than I've walked in like 2 or 3 years at least. So don't get a Apple Watch. Don't get those mindfulness apps. Get a dog and take him for walks. Go outside.
Oh man, and that's go on, Gulo.
I just run a scheduled task. I have a scheduled task that makes a sound in my headphones every hour, and then I just stop what I'm doing. I get up and I go take care of it. So not only do I have scheduled tasks that remind me to exercise while I'm working, I have scheduled tasks to remind me to eat, because I won't take a lunch. I am so OCD that I lose track of all time and anything. So I have to have something that reminds me. Yes, I have the fancy watches. I have the cell phone. I literally just have a scheduled task on my computer that runs once an hour that just says do something.
I like how this stream is turning into how to be horribly unhealthy as a hacker instead of how to not die.
So, I mean, we're talking about our experiences though, right? And the experiences lead up to, hey, this works and this really doesn't work. More gadgets most of the time aren't necessarily going to fix it. It's got to be a mental state.
Well, that's the thing.
I don't know what's wrong with you guys. I exercise daily. I go for runs. I go for walks. I lift weights. I eat actually fairly healthy most of the time, except for weekends. During the week, I'm like a model of I'm actually really healthy. You guys suck at this.
He's like, Gulo's like Olympic athlete. Me, like we're right there. Like maybe like somewhere there.
There's a height difference there. What are you talking about, Silk?
But you bring up
I
eating
am more
habits.
physically fit than most of the chess champions on the Olympic team.
Love it.
What you bring up eating though, which is an interesting one, because I've flipped kind of a little bit all over the place with my eating habits, and I think like right now I'm doing something a little weird, which I'm planning on like flipping back. Like I had I was like 305. I have this great picture of like, I'll have to pull up on my phone, which is effectively like when I met my wife. I'm amazed she didn't run away because she thought I was going to like eat her or something like that, because I was like 305 pounds and I've lost like 100. And the way I did that was like, I want to say keto, but like the thing I had most success with was like just fasting, like just intermittent fasting. But it worked out really well for me because it wasn't a like you have to eat a certain way. It was like you just don't eat. And I did it in a healthy way and blah, blah, blah. But like it was really nice because I could just lose myself in coding and things like that, whatever I was working on, and then come up and do one meal a day. that worked for me. I mean, that was maybe not that. I felt it was a healthy eating habit, like, and I did keto, so I wasn't like starving in between. Have you guys ever done any of those things?
So
My wife. Oh,
Go
I
ahead.
guess I'll start. My wife jokes that, like, I have never followed a diet in my entire life. When I was in the Navy, I ate whatever the chow hall was serving. When I got out, I went to college and I ate whatever the college chow hall was serving. And, but I think for me, the trick is you say you did intermittent fasting. My wife likes to joke because I forget to eat lunch. So I'll wake up and I'll eat a small breakfast and then I'll sit in front of my computer and then time travel to 5 p.m. and I'll be like, oh, I guess it's time to eat. So like, I guess that's just how I've maintained that accidentally. Go ahead, Gator.
So I've experimented with intermittent fasting, and I actually had really good success with that. But one of the things, like when we tried to have my wife go through and do that for her health process as well, we found out that everybody's got a very different metabolism. What works for one person doesn't work for everybody. So sometimes it takes some experimenting to be able to find out what works right and then be able to continue to work it.
All of it's different, like levels of hardness, we'll say, and also like I don't know, I geeked out on a lot of the health and eating stuff like that. And the thing, like, me and my wife did it together, and like some of the things we found out, which just kind of like stink, was like there's big sections on like women. It's harder for them to lose, like biologically, it's harder for them to lose weight than men, and it was like, oh, well, sorry about, like, there's nothing I knew to make you feel better on that. It was just like, I guess I'm sorry. Gula, what were you going to say?
I sat down and I studied nutrition for about 3 or 4 months, and I chemically engineered my diet. I created my diet pretty much out of thin air. I engineered my diet, and then I've been on this diet for 11 years, almost 12 years now. And every couple of years I go to the doctor and I'll spend a year getting a blood test every month. And it's not that I am within all of the bounds of what I should be for everything that they do the blood test on. So like my bun levels and all this other stuff, cholesterol. It's not good enough that I'm in the healthy range. I have to re-engineer my diet every couple of years so I am dead center in every single blood test on every single like criteria from that blood test. So every few years I re-engineer my diet just so that I can be that.
I have a question because this goes along kind of the same lines. Does anyone in chat do like the Huel diet or what was the other, like the Soylent diet or anything like that, where they've replaced meals with Soylent or Huel? Because there's actually quite a few people that I've worked with over the years that swear by it. Like they do that for lunch every day at work instead of having a normal work meal, and it seems to work for them. But I'm curious what the more general, like, is that a common thing in your spaces?
I do Soylent. Well, let me rephrase that. I don't like the formula that Soylent uses, and I need way more calories than what Soylent actually gives to me. So I sat down and I worked with the founder of Soylent 11, 12 years ago. And that's 3 out of my 4 meals a day is Soylent. But it's my own formula. It's what I've engineered to match my body, my lifestyle, those types of things. But it's been over a decade, and everyone thought I was going to die, and I'm pretty sure I'm still alive.
I mean, one of the funny ones. Go on.
I was just going to say, for people who don't know what that is, they're meal replacement shakes, and they're not like Slim Fast shakes. They're actually like they've done the calculations on, this should contain this much vitamin D and vitamin, like it has everything, including actual calories, instead of just being, basically a watered down milkshake.
Like one of the things I found with dieting is I flip between keto and again I'm hoping I'm not gonna upset people, but I probably will. Which is like recently I've been doing veganism, and I've jokingly said like the best thing about veganism is that you get to tell everyone you're a vegan, and I say that after I've done it for like 2 weeks and realize like I'm horrible at it, and I realize I miss eggs. And eggs are a beautiful thing, but like as I flip between all of these things, I've kind of feel like it doesn't really matter what you do as long as you can kind of stick with it. And it kind of all feels like it comes down to calories, but I'm not a medical person or anything like that. I feel like that's what I've kind of figured out for myself. And the thing that works for me is just the intermittent fasting. I guess I'll leave it with that comment for me. It was just like the intermittent fasting works for me, but it's not going to work for everyone.
When I met my wife, she was vegan, and so I'm not a picky eater. So I just kind of in the house we didn't eat meat, and then we've started eating fish and eggs in the house, and it's been surprising that like she always jokes is like, yeah, I've changed your diet so much, you'll probably live longer, and I'm like, yeah, I just eat more of everything instead of less of like because beef has a lot of calories, right?
Yeah, and then there was a funny part. I grew up like finishing the plate. You always had to finish the entire plate because you don't waste food, and that was like horribly unhealthy. I remember like dating my wife, and like we'd go out to eat, and she wouldn't finish her meal, so I'd be like, I can't waste that. So I would eat all of that, and then I just like as we're dating, I'm gaining weight. And I'm like, why is this happening? Oh yeah, I'm an idiot. That's why. So, okay, we've talked about food, we've talked about diet. Now, this is one where I know I fail miserably at, which is mental health. Like, what do you do? Like, do you feel like you have a good work-life balance? And then what do you like kind of do to separate those things?
Now, are you asking me this or are you asking my wife this? Because that would be two very different questions. So where I go through and I am able to help break up for mental health for work versus play. And in my play, I do Hackerspace, I do Darknet, I do you name it. There are so many different projects on my desk. It's incredible. One of the things that I found that helped, especially going through and working from home, is having an area set up for work and then having an area for play. So even typically the work desk would be where I'm going to work. And I have that facing a certain wall and I could move it around if I wanted to. That's great. But then when it comes to playing, either the work laptop shuts down, it gets unplugged, my desk physically moves someplace else, so then I'm able to disconnect. Hey, I'm now in work mode versus I'm now in play mode. Sometimes when I had the larger space, I could then turn around to my L-shaped desk instead and do my playing there. So for me, that was able to help me make that mental disconnect of now it's time to go work on another project, not stay at work forever and ever.
Yeah, having that separation. I don't have that separation, at least in my office. This is my basement office. Now I have like put things up to make me happy around. Gowrie, don't you have that type of like separation as well?
Not really, not anymore. Because like a lot of my, what I do for myself is I don't really do hacking stuff outside of work anymore. Like I just call it off. Like I have my dog and I have music. And that's what I do. And I always, I've put guitar hooks up all throughout my house, and I hang my guitars up so that during the workday, for example, if I'm getting really frustrated, I'll end up seeing my guitar and I'll just end up taking like a 20-minute break to play and maybe sing some music or something like that. So that's what I do for myself. But then when I'm done work, I just leave my office, and I usually end up spending all my time with my puppy now. So it's like, get a dog. But yeah, I used to. Now, I mean, other than the fact that I have separate work and personal computers, but they're basically on the same desk.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, like I've separated it maybe a little bit, but the problem for me is like when I was, it's my own business at this point. So like when I was consulting at my other company, like it was kind of like, okay, when a certain time hits, when I finish my work, like I'm done. But the problem is like at my old job, it was just, there's always more to do because I was a practice lead. So there's always more to do. It's kind of felt like USPS where it's like, there's always more. So when do you step away? And it was like, here is the defined time. I'm working this amount of time and I'm done. And now that it's like my own business, this is where I'm trying. Again, this stream is mostly just a shameless excuse for me to like get all of your habits and see how many of them work for me, because I'm having that trouble separating work from my life because I'm always thinking about it. I'm always going, okay, what else can we do? How else can we expand this service? Who else can we reach out to? Do you find yourself like again, whether it's scheduling or like what mental health things do you do to help like separate the two?
Let's
So
jump to Gulo. But yeah, I just want to point out a comment in chat, which is whenever I'm running out of thoughts, I go take a shower, which I'm gonna use that from now on. Whenever I run out of thoughts. All right, let's jump to Gulo. What do you got?
my work monitors are here. My whatever monitors are here, and idle hands are the devil's playthings. If I spend too much time in my own thoughts, then bad things happen to anything and everything around me, including myself. But my general opinion is I do what I want. I, yes, I'm not selfish, but I do what I want. If I'm working on a project at work and I'm having fun working on it, like I had a programming project problem I was working on yesterday that I had a lot of fun working on. I spent like 14 hours working on it straight. It was something that I enjoyed doing. And there's other times where I will cut out of work as early as I possibly can because I absolutely hate what I'm working on, and I'll go find something else to work on. I pick and choose what I'm working on or how much time that takes in my mind based on how much I enjoy it. And so I bounce between projects. At work, I usually have 10 or 15 projects I'm working on at once. At home, I have hundreds of projects. I have hundreds of engineering things. I have all kinds of random things. Gowrie said something that broke me a couple of months ago where he said that humans need to be bored, that we need to take time and just be bored so that our brains can reset. And I tried that. And that shit screwed me up for weeks.
I think
When I
that's a
just
great
sat there and
point,
I was
though.
bored, my whole world just came to a crashing halt while I was sitting there like watching TV or staring at the wall. That's just not me. I'd rather live fast and die of a heart attack young.
I think it's a great
So-
point, though.
I that came up because my wife was between jobs, and I always joked that she had an inability to let herself be bored. Like she always had to be doing something, and that always led to it kind of led to some burnout because it was like she would go to work, she would come home, and then she would feel restless just sitting on the couch. She'd be like, I have to be productive. And I was like, yo, you got to be a human being sometimes. You don't always have to be a human doing. Like you need to be bored. You need to let yourself be bored, if only because it's at least my opinion that when you're bored, you figure out what you really want to do, right? When you remove the TV, when you remove those sources of passive entertainment and you are only left with yourself, it's dangerous because you're left with your own thoughts and you start getting existential, right? But if you never let yourself do that, you run into this trap sometimes of forgetting to ask yourself what it is you actually want to do on a day-to-day basis. And so if you're never bored, you never get to ask yourself like those hard questions of like, am I happy? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is a really interesting point. I have to agree with you. I don't idle well, though. So for me, I sometimes have to go through and find something else that gives me a recharge. And that's going to be different for everybody. Sometimes that can be just sitting down and playing a game. Sometimes that can be a video game. Sometimes it'll just be going outside and listening to whatever the weather is going through and doing. So I don't idle well. I usually have a list of a bajillion things to do and then schedule things out so I make sure I'm making progress on those.
I think it's something you definitely have to learn how to do. And I say this mainly because I know I suck at it. And when I try and do it, it's really hard. But I know every time I have done it, it's been helpful. And it doesn't necessarily, like for me, it doesn't like, I think there is like a problem right now, like, which is like that for me, I know like the productivity culture where it's like, I always want to be doing something. I want to accomplish something because like, especially now I'm running my own thing. There's times where I go, I know how much I can make if I spend an hour on a client. So like, if anytime I go, I have an unpaid hour, like I have an hour in my day where I'm not making money, it starts feeling like that's a failure of an hour. But I know like also like when I've done like CTFs and Capture the Flags or Darknet or any of these competitions, I know the times where I have like my best thoughts is like just like set in channel, which is like, I think it was like Ray Eats Mushrooms. I love the freaking name. It's awesome. Is taking a shower. That's where I've gotten those better thoughts. When I've stepped away from the chalupa, when I've done like the OSCP or OSWP or any of those things, is when I've stepped away for even like a half an hour to clear my head. Usually you start making those connections that wouldn't have made. But I don't know. That's not really relaxing though, because you're stepping away, but you're still thinking on the problem. So maybe I'm still sucking at that.
I have one sticky note on my desk, and it's not an actual password. And all it says is, you're not the voice of the mind. You're the one that hears it. And that's something that I have to remember, because I am hard on myself. And I don't, as I said, I'm not very good at being idle, just like Gator. And I have to remember that the voices in my head are not me. They're the voices that I'm listening to. So I need to change what they say, how they talk, and all those different things. That's something I have to constantly remind myself of. But I also do like meditation. I also do like Taoism and like meditation through movement sometimes, where it's distract the body to free the mind. I do take time to like introspect, but I can't be bored. I have to be actively doing something. So whether it's breathing exercises, whether it's movement, or whether it's just like self-hypnosis or whatever it is, I'm constantly finding and trying ways to better myself, and or experimenting on myself that causes catastrophic bad things to happen later on. But they're all learning experiences, and it's just how I live my life.
I also think, and I'm going to say something that's like a little hoity-toity, I guess. I think that because we're all very deep into the technical world, we have a habit of sometimes poo-pooing artistic things. And I think it's really important as a well-rounded person to have some type of art in your life. And that might, like, designing a circuit board to have an artistic portion to it is a form of art. Totally, within that realm. But like, not everything in your life has to be technical. And the reason why I say like art is an expression of emotion. So if all you're doing, and like to some extent, I would say even coding can be creative in that sense. And there's an art to it in some sense. But that's why I do music. Because it allows you that chance to actually express yourself in person through a non-technical way, other than the technicals of learning an instrument, for example. But it's like anything else, go be bad at an art for a while, and all of a sudden, a couple years down the road, you'll find yourself being good at it, and you'll have another way to interact with the world. I think it's really important to everyone should have some form of art that they do.
I think what was going through my mind as you're talking about that is my knee-jerk reaction when you're like, I'm thinking about like, oh, is there art and things like that? And like, I think like YouTube has helped a little bit with that for me. But I mean, by the way, if you're watching this on Twitter, there is both a YouTube channel for Hacker Hangouts and then my personal channel, Alex Chevrolet. I don't know if Gator can like throw a link up, but I'm realizing right as you're talking about the art, there's two things that went through my head. One, I don't want to do art because I know I'm going to suck at it. And I know that sounds so stupid because like in anything technical, I know if I pick up a new language, if I pick up any of those things, I'm going to suck at it, of course, because that's part of learning. You fail off and fail better. But I'm thinking about like the art, like there is a path for me to learn a new language. There's a path for me to learn reverse engineering or whatever I'm picking up. Like how to create music is so foreign to me, where it's like, sure, there might be a step. Okay, like learn these notes, learn this, but like it's so freeform. I don't even know how to approach that.
I don't think you have to do music as freeform, though. You can, and really great musicians are completely freeform. But when I learned music, or when I play music, it's usually sheet music. I can do freeform. I'm not very good at it, but I understand the scales, I understand the notes, and I'm able to not scales, keys, and I'm able to actually play freeform. But I much prefer to pick up a piece of sheet music and play from that, and then I'll make alterations to that sheet music for what I want to hear or what I feel like doing in that moment. But I take something else. I'm like BASF. I make things better. I take something that's pre-existing and I build on top of that. And most of my engineering projects are the same way. My music projects are that way. My lighting, everything is, I find something that already exists and I find some way that it makes me happy and I adjust it to that. I make things better.
So I have a question for you guys, and like this is also for chat because not like we're giving this appearance of like we're well-rounded people, like we are at least cognizant of our diets, we do some form of art, we know when to put work down, all of those things, but everyone goes through funks at some point in their life. It's cyclical, if you will. And I kind of want to hear from chat on this. When you are going through a funk, do you let yourself experience that funk? Do you let it ride itself out? Do you try and get yourself out of it? Do you try and take trips? What do you do to kind of recover from whatever, is it a burnout? Is it just, having a stressful week at work? What is it that you do to kind of protect your mental health, I guess, when the stress ramps up or the burnout starts?
I
So
think
while we're waiting for chat to come back on that, I want to go through and say part of what I end up going through and doing is saying, if I start feeling the burnout coming along, you've got PTO, use it. Make sure to go through and schedule that PTO. So for me, I go through and try to schedule like a little mini vacation each quarter so then I can step away, not quote unquote have anything to do, and I can either go work on an arts and crafts project. We can build something. Coming back from the old school of building cabinets and countertops, man. Sometimes I get the itch that I need to build something physically, and it's not technical. It's just give me some materials and some saws, and I want to freaking cut something. So
I have I have 2 freeform days. I have Saturday and Sunday are my freeform days of do whatever it is that you want to do. During the week, I'm completely OCD. I'm OCD in my life in general, and I eat the same meals at the same time every single day. I run through similar exercises for muscle groups. I do the same college classes. I mean, I do different things, but they're all interrelated and they all have time frames. And if I break that, then that kind of breaks me and it takes me a while to get back into a groove. So when I'm in a funk, it's mind over matter. For lack of better phrasing, I force myself to continue down that path because I know if I break that path, it's going to be more harmful for me mentally than it would be if I continue down that path.
See, my answer to that is not a great one because I don't like. I started my business 2 months before COVID hit. Like the best timing ever at the beginning of it because it was just like, cool, I'm quitting my job. I'm going full time, doing my own thing. We're going to grow this. And then it was like, bam, like what is no one interested in during like some of our first clients were like third-party vendor risk management. Like what does no one care during COVID? Third-party vendor risk management. So we had to plant and pivot hard. And it was just the two of us. It was like me and my business partner who was starting this thing. And we didn't really have like, okay, cool, we have to plant and pivot. But like it was a lot. All the technical stuff was on me. I was the delivery arm. He was my Don King who was going out and pimping me out. And I don't have a good, I mean, this is what's terrifying in this conversation. I don't have a good answer where if I get in one of those funks, one day at a time, like anything I would say feels like a cliche, like one day at a time. I tried to do small projects and have success in those small projects and start building them up. But my gosh, Gowrie, you posed the question. Please give me an answer which I can steal and use shamelessly.
I just want to read a couple of chat's responses, which is, but other time, sometimes arrows for Benny, he'll go kickboxing and kick the crap out of the bag. I find that really interesting because I've never been a person to, use a workout as a way to blow off steam. Usually a workout is a very active thing. So if I'm really frustrated, I can't bring myself to go work out, which I think is kind of interesting. And there was another one. Someone said they like to set aside stuff to train their dog. And actually what I'm finding now is definitely the dog is, despite being, I'm raising a puppy. It is very difficult. It is very engaging. It is very demanding to raise a puppy, to be well socialized. But it's making me be more present in the moment on a day-to-day basis. And I definitely understand that mentality of like one day at a time, because what else are you going to do? Um, I mean, for me, it's really like it's hard. It's something like I experienced a pretty solid burnout during COVID, and I managed to work my way through it in part because I had set myself up for success beforehand. In that I had already set up a work environment with coworkers that when I say like, yo, I need to just step away unexpectedly and not do something, or I need space, or I need things like that, our team already kind of expects that from each other, and we give each other space, and we are allowed to slip dates, and we're allowed to do those things. And so that's not going to work for everybody, right? Like I have a 3-week trip planned to go up to Vermont and just plant trees for a week. Like we're planting like 90 trees at the end of April, beginning of May. And like that's hard labor for like a weekend and a half, or maybe like 4 days. But I'm looking forward to bringing my dog up there and actually just getting to spend time on the farm. So I don't have a good answer. Like my tricks are to literally step away when possible, which isn't going to be work for everybody. Not everyone's going to have PTO, which I think is a little bit of a, like, here's the thing, like it's a little bit of a privileged stance to say use your PTO when not everybody in the nation has PTO. Like it's not a guaranteed right in America that you get paid time off. So I think you have to be jealous of your time. And I am very jealous of my time, and that can come across very abrasively. So, it's not that I think I'm gracing people with my time, but my time is the only thing I have. And it's really like time is really the only thing we do have. And it's really important that I think people recognize that they don't have to give their time to every single person. And B, as long as you are honest and upfront about that from the get-go, that you'll find that you can respect when other people request that. You're like, please respect my time. I'm not going to spend half an hour doing this with you because I really need to focus on this other thing. And I think that's what I do to help myself get out of that as well, is recognizing that usually when I'm in those funks, I've been overextending my time to external sources, and I start to claw it back. So I know that's a really long and rambly answer, but I think that is very, very important. Be jealous of your time.
Yeah, I think the phrase I use is be selfish with your time. And I use that as a DEF CON trick of anyone who's new to DEF CON who's never gone before. I always say be remarkably selfish with your time because you have limited time at this hacking conference. So if you find yourself not enjoying something, step away. I like the idea of extrapolating that to your personal time too. Is like you do have limited time. I love that. I think it's awesome.
As far as life goes, life is a journey. We all end up at the exact same destination at the end. So enjoy the journey. I don't do idle time. I don't do boredom well because I think too far into the future. And once I start thinking far enough into the future of why do I have this goal? Why do I want to do this? Why am I prepping for this? It's like, well, I'm just the end is there at some point anyways. What's the point? So I focus on where I live at in the current moment. As far as like teamwork and teammates, I don't have that. The companies that I work for or the things that I do for the companies that I work at, generally I'm the only one that does them. I'm the only one that works on a specific project. My personal engineering tasks are loner engineering tasks. The things that I do are usually wild and so far out there. I don't have anyone but a rubber ducky or a mirror or something that I can talk with. I'm stuck in my own head and my own mind working on these things because people just don't exist that do these things. And if you've watched any of the streams or know me, you know I do some weird shit. But there's also the fact of DEF CON. And DEF CON to me is a family. That is one of the places that I can go to and I can start talking about some random project, and somebody eventually will come up to me and be like, hey, I'm doing something similar, or I want to learn more about this. And then I can actually have a conversation about something that I'm doing, and they will understand me. I can't talk to my boss, my coworkers, anyone. They don't understand a damn thing I do.
I imagine just like at the beginning of that conversation, there's just Gulo holding up the sign, like the end is nigh. Like you're all going to the same place. I think like Brandon Sanderson has it right, that journey before destination is, and I think something Gulo said is like being present. Again, that is a high and lofty goal. Like it kind of goes back to that. I get a notification on my watch to say stand. I get the notification on my watch to say be mindful, be present. But at one point, I feel like I probably need to make the decision to listen to those things. And I think that's the step that a lot of us take. I think most of us know what we should be doing, whether it's food, whether it's eating, whether it's our mental health, but we don't actually take the time to do it. The thing I think I got most out of the stream, though, is taking Gowrie, what Gowrie said, taking time to be bored. Step away from the chalupa, get out, train a dog, but take a moment, and for me, is try and clear your mind and take a moment where it's not technical, it's not your job, because it helps those things. With that, though, where do we end? Gator, what's your parting thoughts on this one?
So this is a constantly learning cycle. You're never going to be finished with this. We're going to ebb and flow. So what may work for you this month may not work for you next month. Make sure that you are diligent with your time when it comes to do something that's important to you, and make sure that you tell the people that you love them, because to Gulo's point, you don't know how long that you have. So hey, whether that's your physical family, or make sure to also go love your hacker family.
I'm going to switch the order. It's going to Gulo next.
Follow your passions. Do what makes you happy. If someone is crapping on that, ignore them, block them, avoid them. Find what makes you happy, and those things may change as time goes on. And do those things as they come up. Live in the moments. You do have a future, you do have a past, but right now is where you live.
Gowrie?
Delete computers, return to monkey.
Thanks for joining us on Hacker Hangouts. We tend to do this at 11 a.m. on Saturdays. Please think about subscribing on YouTube. For Alex Chevrolet or Hacker Hangouts are the channel names. As always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for the channel raid. That was a boost of just awesomeness on my Saturday morning. Thank you for sticking around, and as always, hack on.